Welcome to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein, talking about the evolutionary, the revolutionary, the inspiration and the perspiration, and those aha moments that change everything. And now, here's your host, Rich Goldstein.
Rich Goldstein here, host of the Innovations and Breakthroughs podcast, where I feature top leaders and the path they took to create change. Past guests include Ryan Dice, Joe Polish, and Jason Flatlin. This episode is brought to you by my company, Goldstein Patent Law, where we help you to protect your ideas and products. We've advised and obtained patents for thousands of companies over the past 29 years. So if you're a company that has software or product or a design you want protected, go to goldsteinpatentlaw.com, where there are amazing free resources for learning about the patent process. And you can find out if it's a match to work together with us by scheduling a call with Larry Slavin on my team at speaktolarry.com. You could also check out the book I wrote for the American Bar Association that explains in plain English how patents work. It's called the ABA Consumer Guide to Obtaining a Patent. I have with me here today Lucas James. Lucas is the CEO and co-founder of Twiz.io, where they help innovative companies to grow and scale. He's also co-host of the podcast, How to Scale an Agency, and produces a variety of other content in the area of AI news and developing tech. I'm really happy today to welcome Lucas James. Welcome, Lucas.
Great to be here, Rich. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So just tell me a little bit about your journey, how you got started as an entrepreneur, and kind of what led you to what you're doing today.
Well, originally came to Los Angeles as someone pursuing directing and acting back when I was in college. I've been doing that my entire life and thought that's the route I wanted to go down. Then I read a book, which is actually about Elon Musk. It's called Elon Musk for anyone who hasn't read it. It's a really good book. And I think I was looking for a little bit more tangible ways that I could try to help solve some of the world's biggest problems. I think that's always been something interesting to me. I didn't feel like I had that outlet with directing and acting, because you might make a movie and it might actually change people's lives, which is amazing, and it's definitely really important. But it's hard to measure if that actually led to an outcome that could help people tangibly. Like, it's hard to get bills passed just with a movie. A lot of movies have made legislation happen in the world, but it's not like a direct process. However, with technology, you can develop, let's say it's in medical technology, you could develop something that actually tangibly reduces pain and suffering or disease. And I think what I read when I read that book about Elon Musk was just, here's somebody who basically had all the money in the world after he sold his first company, and he didn't need to do anything, but he decided to. And, now he's kind of interesting character, I'd say, to a lot of people. I won't comment on that, but I will just say that it is inspirational, at least that he tried, and he is trying, and he is doing things that are pretty amazing for the world. And there's a lot of people like him. And so I was drawn to entrepreneurship. So I started my first company as a means to, which is Twiz. It's always been the same business for the last almost 6 years, as a means to essentially build up enough resources to then invest into technologies that I could grow and scale, and then eventually get into more direct things that I feel can help improve society. So I kind of see it as every step for me is like another step on this ladder towards building bigger and bigger solutions to bigger and bigger problems. And one of the best ways to solve these problems is to have a lot of capital. And so one of the ways I'm trying to accrue that is through my first company, and then hopefully take the capital from that company and invest it into bigger problems and bigger solutions that can try to be solved. So I'm almost 6 years into this journey, and it's very new still. I mean, I'm still very early on in that journey. So hoping that it goes the way I'd like it to, but still very early. So
yeah, no, but I get it. And it's kind of like Elon Musk releasing the Roadster and the Model S first, like sell the luxury cars first to finance the selling the one that's more for the masses.
Right.
So it sounds like that's kind of what you've been doing, is you've been kind of like looking to do some things that would lead toward things that then have a bigger impact.
Yeah, that is definitely what I've noticed. You only have two ways really. Just my point of view is you only really have two ways to like change the system. It's either work within the system or create a system completely outside of the system and replace it with a new system. And I feel like that has worked, in history when you can create a new system and replace it with a new system. But a lot of times the easiest way to get something done is to work within the system, try to improve it, and try to find ways to create a better world for everyone with the systems that already exist. So I'm very much like an entrepreneur, I guess, in that sense. I'm not trying to come up with a new way that the world should operate. I'm just trying to improve the things that already exist. So,
Well, it also sounds like you're doing both, right? Like if you
yeah,
work with businesses and you work on helping them with like lead gen and content and things of that nature, like you're
right.
working within the existing systems, like the existing systems of how the search engines operate, et cetera, and like working in compliance with the system. And at the same time, though, you've also created your own platform for helping people to create sales in a new way. So
Yeah.
kind of sounds like you're doing both.
Yeah, that's a good observation. I mean, it's always good to reflect on what we're working on and see if it's going in the right direction. But as with any kind of innovative thing, it's like, to what degree is it also achievable? And I think when you are stubborn like me and you don't want to go out and raise money, uh, the things that are achievable are the things that generate revenue quickly. One day I might raise money, but I just like the whole bootstrap route. It seems a little bit more achievable for my intents and purposes. So
Yeah. No, it's definitely in certain respects a more difficult route, right? To bootstrap things and it's like all you and like well in my case, all me, like either it's like no one's gonna help me make payroll.
right, right. No one.
But
And
it's
it would be nice
rewarding.
to have $1 million in the bank, just $1 million
Yeah.
to just like only just dry powder, just to use for anything. Like in addition to your operating cash flows, just $1 million extra bucks sitting there. It would solve a lot of problems. And I feel
Even as a
like,
cushion.
yeah, a lot of cushion. I mean, I feel like you have to have cut your teeth for a while, bootstrapped, to eventually know how to use that money the right way. And shoot, like, again, we're just entering our 6th year. I'm just now, for the first time with my business partner, actually creating hard budgets with like categories and, doing all that jazz. And we're just too big now as a company to where we can just YOLO it. We can't just wing it. I mean, you have to actually have these things planned out. And so, but it took me like 5.5 years to actually take the time to go do that. But it's going to help us grow. And it's like one of these infrastructural things you need. So,
Yeah. No, and totally. And so and then kind of like once you get to that phase, what do you think would be next? Like what would be beyond that?
you mean for bigger problems to try to
Right.
solve?
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I always think about it as, investors always look at the terminal value of something. And I think the terminal value of this business is probably, I honestly think this company could grow to like $100 million a year in revenue. I don't think it's $1 billion company, but I think it's $100 million company. And I would like to get to that point, which might take 5 to 10 years. Um, but after that point, I would love to get into health tech. I'd love to get into climate tech and also just like community design, because I feel we live in such a interesting time period where people can't afford to buy homes. I'm a millennial, like borderline millennial Gen Z, and nobody who I know who's a Gen Z, and a lot of millennials too, just can't afford to buy homes. So you're living in this environment where all these people are just renting forever. And it's actually in some ways cheaper to rent right now than to buy. But it would be cool to design communities where you actually feel a sense of ownership in that community, or literally have a sense of ownership in that community. So there's a couple different areas, but I think it always just centers around suffering. I think every person who lives in the United States to some degree, or has the privilege of being here, should want to try to find some ways to reduce suffering in the world. it's a tangible thing we can all agree on. So we might as well try to fix it to some extent, whether it's homelessness or food insecurity. Those are big problems that sometimes are just of our own making. Like, I think we actually could solve both those issues if we found the right system to solve it. Or in the right technology that could potentially help us solve it. So those are sort of the next ones, but those are $1 billion ideas, right? This one's kind of like $100 million idea. I think it can get to that size, but the next one would be a moonshot. How do you build like $1 billion company, or $100 billion company, right? That would be sweet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Well, I mean, let's talk a little bit about what you have been building recently. So you've got this software platform that had 1,000 businesses used to date, and like you're kind of finishing up the third version of it now. So kind of like what is that you built, and kind of what made you decide to build that instead of something else?
Yeah. Well, again, it's kind of like, I think of it as like the anti-VC route. I think when you ask, why did I decide to build it? I think of it kind of like the anti-VC route, essentially, where it's, if you think about the way VCs invest in companies or angel investors, it's with the assumption that you front load them with so much capital to give them what's necessary to reach escape velocity and build this huge company. But because you're putting so much intense pressure on them, and because it is one of the only ways really to make these companies succeed with a high enough rate to build a whole LP firm around it and investment fund around it, you need to front load them with a lot of capital. But that also means that a lot of these companies fail because you're putting them under so much intense pressure to grow that they just physically cannot actually make it happen in such a short period of time. So they almost have to constrain them to building ideas quickly that may not even be fully tested with a real use case, but if they can just whip through those, they'll get 1 out of 100 to succeed or something, like really succeed. The reason I built the business and the software that we have the way we did, it's because I don't like that model for myself. I want, if I'm going to do something, I want to know there's a pretty high chance it's going to succeed. So the agency does services for our clients, whether that's development or marketing or whatever. And then we build software to help us make more money, either for our clients or just for ourselves. And that software then gets licensed to everybody as part of the subscription. And we just add more and more features to the software that's based on something we're actually doing for ourselves. So the things you'll find when you go into the software right now, and then the new features with like the AI and the enhanced dashboards and everything are actually being rolled out this week. So I'm really excited for that. But what you'll find right now when you go into the software is basically a lead generation tracking tool. It sounds boring, but it's actually a huge problem for our internal operations. So anyone who gets a lot of leads needs to figure out a better way to track them. You could do it through a CRM, but there are some limitations to that. Like, for example, let's say you have a lot of people sending you leads from a lot of different places. Well, they don't all have access to your CRM. So what happens if you need them to report on the status of those leads? You're gonna have to pay for all of their accounts inside your CRM. That adds up. And so for us, we're like, well, we need a layer before that to help get those leads to then get sorted and tracked and all this stuff beforehand. So it's a lead tracking tool. And where the AI part comes in is we're like, well, what if we could integrate with Stripe and integrate with Calendly, and then also use third-party data, like whether it's from LinkedIn or other sorts of places, to enhance the leads that are coming through the funnel and give us more insight into who these people are. Well, if you did that, then you could create, and this is what we're doing right now, is you could create essentially lead scoring automatically based on many different parameters. So all you would have to do is plug your Stripe account into the software, if you use Calendly, which a lot of people do for booking meetings through the software, you could then use this software to track your leads and also determine how good they are, how good your lead scores are, and also how much you're projected to sell this month, next month, the following month, which is extremely valuable for my company. So my pitch, I always say to people, is like, look, this is working for us. It's making us money. I'm very confident it will for you too. Right. But that's the pitch. It's like, it's not really a oh, we're going to build this huge world changing business. It's like, if I could just make you $1,000 a month and our service costs $97 a month, then I feel confident selling you that, right? Obviously, if I made you more than that, that's amazing. But it's like, it's a very simple pitch. It's very contained, and there's really not a whole lot going on. It's just finding a way to make more money from every single lead that comes through your pipeline. And that's with
So
AI.
it's not massive value, but it's clear value, right? Like you said, it's not like you're saying I'm going to give you a benefit that's worth $100,000 a month. It's like it's going to be worth $1,000 a month, and that's clear. So I'll charge you 97 for it, right?
Well, that's the best part about having a company that already is scaled, right? Because when you launch a software product, people that are launching their own products and going through VC funds or angel investors, they love when they can have somebody be like the test pilot for their software. And the bigger the company is, the more revenue it's making, the more data you can pull in, right? So if you have a company that's doing, a large amount of revenue, you can then take all those data points and just feed it into the software. Plus you have complete control over that. That's the other big thing, because with the test pilot company or whoever you're working with in your beta, they may not want to give you all that information, and B, they may not have the capability to get you the information you need in the time you need it. And so if you have a system that you control, then you can say, yeah, all that information going right into the software. We're going to enhance the software and iterate on it. And we have this live thing, which is pumping information into the software 24/7, which is a huge value add for our business. So that's how I look at it. That's how I look at the product. And I think there are some big moonshot ideas that can be made with it. And I think over time, through different versions, it can get bigger and bigger. But the third version is really specific,
Yeah.
Like Loom just got acquired for $975 billion. They do basically one thing, right?
Million, right?
Yeah, loom.com.
Million, not billion, right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought I heard million. I'm like, that's a
no.
that's
No,
like,
yeah, they sold for less than a million, or less than a billion.
right. All right, got it.
Basically $1 billion. In cash, they do this one thing really well, which is they record stuff. So like the simpler I can make it, like the software literally just has about 2 or 3 screens. There's only like 2 or 3 things you see, but I'm focusing on making it extremely fast, extremely easy to use, and extremely simple.
Yeah, I think I'm spotting a pattern here, that I think that you like to have the moonshot ideas, but find some incremental steps towards it and then work on those.
Yeah, I think it's because when you look at successful entrepreneurs who are like billionaires, right? There's a lot of what do they call it? Survivorship bias, I think is the word, where they say, do these things, like go raise money, go do this, go do that, and you'll be like me, right? But then once you start diving into the statistics, that's not actually what happens, because if your whole goal is to increase the probability of success, if you did exactly what they did, you actually would decrease your probability of success, because there's 1,000 other people or 10,000 other people who did exactly what they did and failed.
Right.
So I'm always looking at it as like, in every endeavor I'm aiming for, what is the highest probability of success? And then also the highest outcome. And if I can get to that level, then I'll go to the next level after that point. But let's get to that level first and then go to the next level. Where is that clear next goal, right? And then the next goal after that,
Right. Right. And I guess that's a way to be more scientific about it, because I think people in general confuse correlation with causation, right? And so like this is all the things that I did. I kind of fell out my front window, and then I met this person that led me to the VC, and then therefore that's necessary for success. Like, no, that's just, it's correlated. It happened that way, but it's not necessarily what caused your success, right? So if you, I guess, if you go stepwise, you can kind of really see more scientifically what led to it.
It's true. It's where, and I think, I think my opinion may not have been as popular in the last 10 years, but I think it will become more popular in the next 5. because I think capital will be more constrained. More people will be looking at opportunities to invest in private equity as opposed to VC and angel investment, like moonshot ideas. And I think this idea will actually return more capital to investors, which is, better for the investors. So I think it was not as popular when you had so much free money flying around, but in an environment where all those businesses have failed, or so many of them have failed or gone to zero, this is one that's still standing. Like, no matter what era you're in, it still produces something valuable. Even if it's not at the peak in every cycle, it's always incrementally going up, Yep,
absolutely. And so you love kind of tracking these trends and talking about them. So I think, like one of the things you enjoy doing is creating content related to kind of AI and developing tech. And so, yeah, I mean, just like, what are some of the things you do with that? And what do you think would be helpful for people to know about creating content in their area?
Yeah. So there's a couple things. Creating content, you need to get out of your head how difficult it is. And that was something that I struggled with because for a while there, I was just overthinking it. Like, what is it? What do I need to do to go viral? Like, I've got to make this amazing video. So you got to remove that fear of having it be perfect. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's a system, just like any other system. So this is something that has given me a lot more confidence going into now my second year really fully doing content, because it's only been a little bit. Like, I've only really pushed content out the last 2 years heavily. But this is going into my full second year. And what I've kind of learned is that I already have these systems that work for growing my business, and they all have standard operating procedures, and everyone follows the same thing, and all the analytics are very clearly tracked. For some reason, I just wasn't thinking of social media as the same kind of system. I was just thinking of it as this, thing you do, but it really is just like any other system. I mean, you have everything tracked, you build up all the systems for your team to replicate every day, and you gain momentum by putting out content on a consistent basis. You get people on your team to hold you accountable, because I'm a pretty inconsistent person. I like to go in energy spurts, and sometimes I get really behind on stuff because I just procrastinate. But being consistent is not my MO. So having people keep you consistent is really important. And I think if you think of it like it's any other system, and then the third thing is just make content that you find really fun or interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed that from interviewing a lot of people, because I've interviewed now over 300 people, I've just learned that they can pretty much get their audience to do anything if they're putting out a lot of good, valuable content. So even if you sell something completely random, you can get them to buy it at a really high rate if you put out a lot of valuable content beforehand. And so for me, talking about tech and innovation is kind of related to the services I sell, but more importantly, it is building an audience of people that are the purchasers of my services, even if they're not directly watching content about my services. So they might be watching content about AI. And they might not have any business related to AI, but they might be a business owner who's concerned about the changes that AI might have in the world. In that case, I could probably drive them from there to a community talking about AI. And then eventually you have a business, here's how you can benefit from these implementation practices in your business or these services that use AI. And so if you do something that you really enjoy, then you'll never get bored, which is a really key piece, because I also get very bored easily. And so you have to do something that really excites you and you could talk about forever. And for me, that's tech, that's news, that's content. I'll hear an idea of something. I'll just have a conversation with someone. They'll be like, oh, did you hear about this new feature, this new tool? And then I'll instantly go and create a video about it just because it's so fun. It's fresh in my mind. And I'm like, I can also use that as part of the story, because I could say, hey, my friend mentioned to me this new tool. I had to make a video about it for you. So I think, keeping those things in mind can make it very consistent and scalable.
Yep. Cool. And I think that what fits into that is that you've been, well, first of all, you've been doing all kinds of traditional software development for a very long time. And you've also been using tools for no code software development for a while. And so like any tech that you're excited about, that you're into, like you make videos and you put out content on it. And like, that's something that's actually gathered attention for you recently, right? There's like from having put out that content about something that you're into, it's been picked up. I'll say a little more about that.
Yeah. I mean, the podcast for us has had the most traction. I have had some videos pick up steam, but I think the biggest thing is anytime I have a growth curve with my content and I'm putting out a lot of content around no code or AI, I've kind of failed to stay consistent. And so I'll have this momentum and then I'll get distracted for like 2 weeks and then it will die down. So now everything's really starting to compound because I have multiple people on my team who hold me accountable to making sure that it's done. And the best way to hold yourself accountable is to pay somebody for something, because then you feel bad if you're not actually doing it yourself. So I'll pay people to help me with my social media, and then that makes me feel more committed to getting it done. So yeah, I mean, the stuff that's done really well and kind of been compounding is around no code, specifically bubble.io. It's a really cool platform. They've been working on it for the last 11 years, like just that software company, but only in the last few years, like 2 years, has it actually taken off and become this huge global sensation. And they are actually introducing some features here in the next year that will allow people to talk or type what they want their app to be, and then it will actually create the app using this no-code platform. And unlike ChatGPT, where you can do that, but it produces code, and then that code has to go into an actual system for that code to be displayed or to use it. With Bubble, you could tell it what you want, and then you could have a really easy to use interface that doesn't require coding to then drag and drop and move things around. And so if you follow this train of thinking, it's pretty amazing what's possible. I mean, you could instantly create apps that do amazing things and come pre-configured by just texting what you want. You don't even have to know how to code or do anything. And so there's a huge movement, and the cost of development is dramatically being reduced. I mean, like 10, 20 times. And so it's almost like when you had telecom and the cost of communication was dropping so rapidly that consumers haven't adapted to it yet. It's actually an enormous opportunity for software development firms, because software development firms can now offer their services to build an app for a fifth of the cost of what they were selling before and still make a 70, 80% margin, because it does take time to learn how to do Bubble and to learn it fully. But the time for that developer to make the product has dropped so much. So you can charge less, but still make a lot of money and get a way more demand from customers because the price is a fifth or a half of what they were paying. So it's the same kind of revolution where basically the companies haven't caught on yet, and they have no alternatives because there aren't that many good developers on the no code side. So they have nowhere really to go, and they want apps for cheaper because they don't need to pay $100,000 for a custom app, or 200 or 400 or whatever it is. So they only have a few options, and then the people who can deliver it can still make a really good profit, even with a lower cost. And so that's kind of like the same groundbreaking revolution that happened in telecom and other industries.
Yep. Very cool. It's cool to notice the trends and see the parallels and kind of try to guess where it's headed next. If people want to learn more about you or get in contact with you, how they go about doing so?
They could go to Twiz, T as in Tom, W as in whale, I as in igloo, Z as in zebra.io. And when they're there, they can click on resources in the top left corner. We put out a ton of content every month about all these cool things with AI and tech. But if they want to sign up for the software, just click on sign up in the top right corner, and you can sign up for free for 30 days and see how to use it. And I hope you enjoy it. It's been about 2 years we've been working on it, and the last 8 months working on this new version. So we're really hoping this version can hit scale and become a really big product, and we hope that you enjoy it. So.
Hey, great. Well, thank you so much, Lucas. I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Rich.
Thanks for listening to Innovations and Breakthroughs with your host, Rich Goldstein. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at innovationsandbreakthroughs.com, and we'll see you next time.